Hello dear students, this question is from GATE 2006 exam and is for 2 marks. Question is really simple one, but the statement is lengthy. So first let's read out the statement slowly and patiently. We'll understand it side by side, then we'll be solving this question. A CPU has a cache with block size 64 bytes. The main memory has k banks, each bank being c bytes wide. Consecutive c bytes chunks are mapped on consecutive banks with wraparound. All the k banks can be accessed in parallel, but two accesses to the same bank must be serial. So let's understand this much. They are saying you have cache block size of 64 bytes as well as the RAM comprises of a lot of banks. They are saying we have k banks in total and each bank is c bytes wide. Also they've given the values of k and c. So you have 24 banks in total and one bank is 2 bytes wide. We'll just see that in the remaining part of the question. Okay, we'll read the entire question. First of all, let's understand this much. So why are we doing all these things? Why are we splitting memory into multiple banks or multiple chips? Just to increase the speed of RAM. This is the concept of memory interleaving. I've discussed this concept in a great detail in my theory lectures. Anyways, just recap it in 1 or 2 minutes. Say you want to save some program in RAM. Now, one method is you just pick this program, map it as it is on one of the chips. Okay, that means say each line needs 2 bytes. Also, this chip is 2 bytes wide. So, we'll place one line in one location on a chip. This way, suppose you have 24 lines. Okay, this way you will access this chip 24 times. That means the time required in accessing a chip will be spent 24 times, one time for each line. The other method is you take the first line, map it in this chip. Second line, map it here. Third line, map it here. So on 24th line, map it here. That way, what will be the benefit? You will just spend time required for accessing a chip only once, but all 24 lines could be accessed because they are saying these banks can be accessed in parallel. Okay, you cannot access a chip twice continuously, but all of these can be accessed in parallel. Okay, so that's the reason we are using memory interleaving here. Let's just read the statement, then we'll also find out the answer. A cache block access may involve multiple iterations of parallel bank accesses depending on amount of data obtained by accessing all k banks in parallel. Each iteration requires decoding the bank numbers to be accessed in parallel and this takes k by 2 nanoseconds. The latency of one bank access is 80 nanoseconds. Okay, so they are defining something called iteration. Iteration is accessing all the k banks, value of k is 24, all the 24 banks one time. That means you will get 24 into 2 bytes of data that are present on continuous locations. So if you want 48 bytes of data, you will access all these banks once, and this is called one iteration. Next, they are saying that 64 bytes or one cache block could be accessed in multiple iterations. Obviously, you can see 48 bytes are accessed in one iteration. So for 64 bytes, you would require 2 iterations. Okay. So even though the next iteration would not just span all the chips, so 64 minus 48 is 16. That means in second iteration you need only 16 bytes, but still that will be called one iteration. Okay. Let's read what they are asking. The latency of one bank access is 80 nanoseconds If C is equal to 20 and K is equal to 24, then latency of retrieving a cache block starting at address 0 from main memory is. Okay. So they are saying latency of accessing one bank is 80 nanoseconds. Okay, that means each of these banks require 80 nanoseconds. But for one iteration, you will count 80 only once. You will not multiply it by 24 because once you spend 80 nanoseconds, that will be for all of the chips because they are working in parallel. At the same time, addresses, some particular address will be provided to each and every chip, and after 80 nanoseconds, all of the chips will be ready with data. Okay. So they're saying decoding bank numbers require k by 2 nanoseconds. That means for one iteration, you will provide all these addresses. Okay. There will be a decoder that will decide which chip has to be selected. Now, first thing is you could ask for only 1 byte. If you're asking for 1 byte, say this one, it will be having some address. That address will be byte number plus bank number. So the bank number has to be decoded by a decoder, and this bank or chip will be selected. Then this byte number will be provided to fetch that particular byte. Okay. Second thing is you could ask for a continuous stretch of data. That means this decoder will work for each and every chip one by one. It will decode all those addresses, the continuous stretch. I'll just read out that line. You'll understand it from there. Each iteration requires decoding the bank numbers to be accessed in parallel. So all the bank numbers, say you want to access 3 bank numbers, 1, 2 and 3. These bank numbers will be decoded in parallel, and this will take k by 2 nanoseconds. Now even though you require data from only these 3 banks, still k by 2 nanoseconds will be required. That don't take value of k is equal to 3 because you're accessing only 3 banks. No, that's wrong. Because that doesn't matter actually. If you only want data from this bank, still the size of decoder will remain same. This one will be a 5 cross 32 decoder. Okay, 5 inputs and 32 outputs, because you need to just identify one of 24 different items. So 5 cross 32 will be required. That means even though you want to access very few chips, still time taken will depend upon the total number of chips. Okay. Now let's try to find out the answer to this question. They're asking latency of retrieving a cache block starting from address 0 from main memory is. Okay. First thing is, why are they providing this information that cache block starts from the address 0? It's because of the reason they just want to provide a hint that first 2 into 24 bytes are present in one iteration. Okay. So the first address will be present in first chip. First 2 bytes will be the 0th location of first chip. So you can just see in one iteration you get 48 bytes of data. That is number of banks into width of one bank. 48 bytes in first iteration. Now you actually want 64 bytes. That means 16 bytes will be fetched in the second iteration. Okay. Let's calculate how much time it will require. First thing is, you'll decode all these bank numbers for the first iteration. That will require 12 nanoseconds. Okay. So first iteration, this requires 12 nanoseconds plus some time will be required in accessing all these banks. That is given as 80 nanoseconds. In this much time, you have fetched one iteration's data. That means 48 bytes. Now, you need 16 more bytes. That means 8 banks have to be accessed. So, how much time will be required for decoding the addresses for these 8 banks? 8 by 2. K by 2 is 8 by 2. No, please don't say K by 2. Sorry, 8 by 2. It will still be 12 nanoseconds. Okay, because this time will be defined by the total number of banks, because decoder's complexity will depend on total number of banks. Also, all the 8 banks will be accessed in parallel. So you will count 80 only once. So you add all these times and that is the answer. 80 plus 80 will be 160 plus 24. That is 184. So answer to this question is 184 nanoseconds. Okay. Yeah, so let's also discuss about this. CPU will generate some address. It will be divided into two parts, higher order bits and lower order bits. These lower order bits will be used to identify a bank number. Okay, decoder will use these bits to find out the bank number, and then these bits will be supplied to that particular bank. Say you are talking about bank to 7th address. Okay, each address contains 2 bytes. So these lower order bits will be 2, that means 0, 0, 0, 0, so on, 1, 0. That is equivalent to 2 in decimal. And these higher order bits will be 7 in decimal. Okay. How can I say that lower order interleaving is used, or these lower order bits define the this address of a bank? Okay. That is so because between two consecutive addresses, only the last bit would change. Okay, the last n bits would change. For example, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. If you want the next address, that will be 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, so only last 3 bits have changed. Okay. Also, we want to place these two addresses in different banks. That means some n bits, we cannot say how many, some n bits would give you the bank number. N bits from that side, okay, last n bits. So here, those n bits will be 5. 5 bits will give you the bank number, because you have a total of 24 banks, and to address one among 24 you will require log to the base 2 24 ceiling. These many bits will be required, log to the base 2 24 ceiling. This comes out to be 5. So 5 bits will be required in bank number, or lower order bits that are given to decoder will be 5. Okay.